Good evening, dandies. Welcome to Undetermined, the podcast.
Special guest this evening, Mr. John Wright.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, John Wright, Dead Bob. And NoMeansNo, of course, prior. Yeah, a big pleasure to meet you, man.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like I say, it's very nice that you've reached out, and a bunch of people have been reaching out, and excited that something's going on again from this end of the world, from us. So,
right. So that's good. Yeah, I mean, you're getting some feedback there. That's awesome. I've been listening to the new record. It's really good.
Oh, thank you.
Oh man, I'm digging everything I hear. Of course, I've been, I wasn't really, I didn't really even know about like NoMeansNo back in the late 80s, but in mid 90s, I think probably the first introduction I got to your work was Virus 100 doing the cover of Forward to Death. Yeah.
Jello thought we were making fun of him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, no. We're just doing something a little different. That's all.
Yeah. But I heard that. I was like, that was the first punk rock acapella song I'd ever heard, I think.
Yeah. It's a really fun track.
And I was like, that's fucking great. I need to, look into this. And I picked up Wrong. Eventually. So yeah, I mean, like I say, you're kind of isolated there in Canada. We're isolated here in Missouri. So I'm glad, the sound waves found my ears for sure.
Oh yeah. We were through Kansas City early on in our very first tour, I believe in 1986. We kind of packed up the van and our manager booked whatever he could in the States, and which I think we never played a Friday or Saturday night for, 2 months. Traveling through, playing a lot of people's backyards and just, midweek, but meeting, of course, loads of people. And we'd have 2 or 3 days off stretches and people putting us up and yeah, it's like racking my brain, and I'm embarrassed. I can't remember the name, the fella that we stayed with in Kansas. We played there and stayed in his house and a couple of days, and of course we went back and saw him again on subsequent tours. And then we didn't play Kansas City for quite a while. I don't really know why. I mean, the scene, of course, is up and down in different places, and often, a town just requires that person or those folks who get something going and get something happening, and booking bands like us, and back then, of course, the punk rock scene wasn't a big scene, and so,
I think sometimes like the loop around Kansas City, like bands will end up doing a loop, and I don't think it's like an intentional thing. But they end up having to do like a big out of the way zigzag to hit us sometimes with the way the tour is scheduled.
Yeah. I'm not, and of course you just can only get shows where you can get shows, and eventually you're always gravitating to, where the shows will be paying you and doing better or whatever.
Right.
So the schedule in the States was, it was never like the same routing all the time, and I think the last time we didn't play in Kansas City, Ivanti, or what is, there's a town maybe an hour out of, I can't remember the name. We came up from Dallas and played there.
Coming up from Dallas.
So, yeah, it was another town near Kansas.
Springfield, maybe? Or
Joplin, Springfield. Is it on the Kansas side or the Missouri side?
It would be on the Missouri side, I think. And it was up pretty close to Kansas City because, anyway, yeah. So we ended up playing a lot of different places, that's for sure. And but we also went by Kansas City because my sister lives there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my sister lived in Liberty for the longest time. Not actually Kansas City proper, but lived in Liberty for the longest time. And now she lives in Smithville.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Smithville's a neat little town.
Yeah, it is.
I really like it. It's got its own character. I like Smithville a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got. I don't think they're right in the town. They got some property, some acreage outside, and she's a nurse. She moved to the States back in the when was it? Late 80s, 90s. There was like no work for nurses here in British Columbia. She became a nurse and everything, but just couldn't get a decent job. And they were desperate for nurses in the States, and there was huge recruiting, recruiting going on. And when she had basically had her choice of, 7 different hospitals she could have got a job at with lots of incentive and whatnot. Yeah. And I guess somewhere in Liberty was the one that seemed to be the most attractive. And so she moved there to work and hasn't moved back.
Yeah, Smithville's got a pretty lake there, and it looks like I'd like to spend more time just
right off the river.
Yeah, but it's right off the river. It's got a nice lake, and it's got that small town kind of feel, but it's still kind of Kansas City and kind of North Kansas City, and just south of Paradise, they say.
Right.
Right. So, but you're in Lund. Yeah, I just saw that there's I don't know if it's a documentary coming out, if it's already come out. End of the Road, I think it was called about.
Oh Lund. Yeah, there was a movie. Yeah, documentary. That came out a little while ago. Yep.
Did it?
And to be perfectly honest, I've never seen it.
Well, apparently we haven't either. So.
Yeah. No, I just saw a trailer for it though. It looks interesting though. Apparently, literally it is the end of the road. You travel north up the coast, and there's you can follow the coast of North and South America by road almost entirely, except for I think there's a stretch down on the Panama Isthmus.
Right.
There's a little bit there that there's actually no road, and it's from what I understand, one of the most dangerous places in the world.
Yeah, I've seen documentaries on that, and it looks like a scary place.
From like northern Panama or something, Costa Rica or something, you have to take a boat and get down to Colombia, I guess it is, and then you can continue driving from there and drive all along the coast, all the way to Tierra del Fuego in Chile. So. It's so up here at the end of the road when the highway winds down to the dock in Lund, in the hotel, and it's like mile zero, and then and I can't remember how many miles to Tierra del Fuego, the other miles.
Yeah. Oh, but it's got it listed how far it is.
Yeah, you can't drive any further along the coast here.
Wow.
You go inland, of course, and drive up north and all the way up, of course, to Alaska, but you can't do it by car along the coast.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why we're the end of the road, and it's kind of, people gravitate to the end of the road for a lot of reasons. So there's a lot of different kind of characters around here.
Yeah, the documentary kind of, or the trailer it was insinuating it was kind of a hippie commune sort of place, a lot like the Triangle, you know.
One of my friends was born on that commune.
Oh, yeah? Really?
Wow.
Yeah, trying to escape the draft, right?
I just walked by another neighbor of mine who is a draft dodger from New York, from the 70s.
Good for him.
He's probably 10 years older than I am. I'm 61 now, and he's in his 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yep. People that just live right around me now here. And you have ex-loggers and fishermen and just people who are, can't deal with society for whatever reason, have to get away from people. And so you have a real odd sorts of characters, and lots of nice people.
You have a pretty broad spectrum of extreme liberal versus extreme conservatism.
Oh yeah. Well,
I could see both being drawn to a place like that.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, and of course all the really tiny town politics, and which I thankfully avoid mostly. I just I just live in my place. Don't really get involved with the community that much. Although since I ended up partnering up and buying a pub down in Powell River. Now, Powell River is about a half an hour south of us on the highway. It's also here on the North Sunshine Coast. And it was, like in the 50s, the mid 50s to the mid 60s, I believe it was producing 25% of the world's newsprint.
Wow.
Was a massive paper mill here. And, so this town was extremely wealthy. It was like one of the wealthiest towns in Canada for a long time, but it's totally isolated. You can't get here. You can. There's roads, like I say, but you have to take a ferry. In fact, from Vancouver, you have to take 2 ferries to get here. So it's always been this kind of, they had they had 3 dairies and a lot of locally produced food. And it was quite a self-sufficient town. In fact, it was the first town in Canada anyway that had social housing. It had universal Medicare. Like everyone from the mill would pay $1 off their paychecks and they could go see a doctor for free, kind of thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was kind of a planned city that way, or a planned town around this mill. It's a pretty high ideals. Of course, all white.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. The indigenous people around here, of course, were forced out of their territory, and all the colonization issues that happened. Which was, of course, all over North America, everywhere in the world, really. But Powell River, it was kind of it has a kind of an interesting history.
Yeah. So you've been, you said part owner in a pub there. It's a brewery too, isn't it?
No, it's not a brewery. That was kind of the whole idea, is that it would become a brewery, be a brew pub, because, I've been brewing my own beer for, 30 some odd years.
Wow.
When did I start? 1992. So I guess just over 30 years. And and kind of the whole craft brew thing was, in fact, it was a trip down to California, Jeff, and we didn't play, but you drive past this town called Hopland, and we went in and just to have some lunch or to stop, and there's like a brew pub. This is like 1986 or 7 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they're brewing their own beer. It's like, oh, this is totally awesome. Canadians were all really super snobby about their beers, like, American beers, all piss and blah. And really, in actual fact, between us, Canadian beer sucked. And always did. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Not to say that I like to pound back the old Milwaukees or anything like that. I'm just saying it was, a lot of bullshit. So and actually, the craft beer really started in Northern California, Oregon, but I found it fascinating and great. And then we ended up touring in Europe, and I'd been over traveling as a kid earlier in the 80s, but, it's just like, wow, I love beer, and it was all this great beers, and come home, it's like, all this beer is shit. And so I decided, okay, fuck it, I'm just going to make my own beer, and started brewing in like 92 or something, 91, 92. And, I've been doing it ever since, and got pretty good at it. And
I imagine after that much time.
Yeah.
What's your go-to? What's your favorite brew to make?
Well, I mostly brew lagers when I can, especially
I like lagers.
Bavarian, by that I mean Franconian lagers. That's, to me, that's the Shangri-La, the Mecca of brewing, is like Nuremberg and Bamberg, and that part of Europe. Czech beers, but I'm definitely like the lagers and pilsners, of course. But whatever. And now I just brewed a beer, not yesterday, day before, and the weather's getting warm here, right? And I have another little cabin on my property here, and I don't have any refrigeration or temperature control. It's just all basically ambient temperature. In the winter, it's great. I can do lagers. The cabin, I have some heat, so it doesn't get freezing. But in the summer, there's no air conditioning. So, and ales, you tend to brew.
Hello?
Sorry, I touched my phone.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it happens.
That's okay. I'm back. And ales tend to ferment at higher temperatures. So right now, the ambient temperature, I think, in the cabin is it's 18 degrees Celsius. So because that's 68 degrees or something, and so
that's
now
a nice
I'm
day.
ales. In the summer, I whatever, I have to brew what is going to work depending on the time of year I'm brewing. So
it's like farming, yeah.
But lagers are my go-to.
Well, that's good man. And you can tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know a lot about brewing it. I know a lot about drinking it, but I think a lager it's usually a bigger challenge than something like a stout or an IPA, because you can just hide so many flaws with just over hopping shit, and or making a stout to where it's just so bitter that you cover up so much. But I think a lager, in a lot of ways, it brings out the true worth, I guess, of the brewer.
Well, it's basically malt driven, and you don't have a lot of character from the yeast itself too, because the colder fermentation is less esters and less character, and so it's a little bit more. Delicate, I guess, and revealing, and more subtle. Subtle. I prefer beer tasting beer.
Right.
I'm not. I like an IPA or whatever, but I don't like it when it's like sort of beer flavored hops. I would rather it be the other way around.
Exactly.
Some hops flavor in there for sure. It's a natural for sure, but when it seems like every other flavor in the book is more important than the malted barley, is where I start to lose it. So.
Yeah. Matt and I would go to a beer fest, local beer fest here every year for a long time. Then they kind of
years. Well, then the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Kind of fizzled out, and they take it to different places. I remember the last time we went, this guy in a t-shirt in front of us was just like, "Keep your fruit out of my fucking beer." I was like, "Yeah, I got to get."
Well, I'll tell you, the craft brewers around here, because it's a big industry here in British Columbia, and a lot of them are like, they're all turning out just straight up lagers, straight up, the rice lager, bomber rice lager. It's like, wow, this is essentially craft brewed Budweiser.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's good. I like it. It's not that Budweiser's a terrible beer or any of these beers. It's just, I like the fact that it's, craft brewed. It's a small company. It's local. It's, they don't use it's not a factory. I mean, when you're brewing in a factory, you have to do a lot of different things to make it work. And just all the, I just like it when it's, the basic brewing process and nothing added. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
what's your favorite beer when you're in the Kansas City area?
Oh my God, it's been so long. That's a tough one. I haven't been now. I'm sure there's probably way more beers down there now than there was the last time I was through. And I was trying
I'll tell you an interesting one to try and check out is from John and I both really like this. It's a Big Piney.
Oh yeah, big
beer.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. Speaking of weird flavors, but this one is really interesting. It's a black walnut beer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, to say that that's what I prefer, but I also it's like there's a lot of creativity, and I'm never against people being creative and trying stuff. I've had some pretty interesting beers too that are unusual. But yeah, I just generally gravitate to the straight up beers, lagers.
Did you ever try brew anything really freaky?
Well, I mean, I was doing some fruit beers back in the 90s, like
right.
I think the weirdest beer I ever made, and I don't even know what happened to it. It got infected with something.
That'll be weird.
Boy.
I don't know what it was. It grew some kind of mold on it. And it was sitting in the secondary in the glass carboy there, and it all turned this white thing grew on the surface and had these little towers of mold poking up out of it. It was just the oddest thing. It was like, oh my god, it's gone off. I got it. But it's like, well, I better taste it, see what's going on, and I'd rack some off, and it's like, oh, actually, kind of tastes all right. It smelled funny, but it tasted good, kind of like moldy cheese or something.
Mm-hmm. Like a kombucha mother was on it or something.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. In fact, somebody did tell me what they thought it probably was, and now I can't remember. But of course, being the cheapskate I am, it's like, well, I don't want to throw it out. It actually tastes okay. And ended up bottling it. I didn't drink it all. I gave a lot of it away, but when I went to this was in Vancouver, and I was living down in Vancouver, and a local beer supply store where I got all my stuff from. He was doing some homebrew nights. People would come in and bring their beer. Mm-hmm. And I didn't go to many of them, but I went to one with this beer. Came and I said, okay, fellas, this one was weird, and this is what happened. And one guy said, he was like, this is the best beer I've ever had in my life. He totally loved it. It was like, so you just never know.
Right.
But I didn't make it on purpose.
Yeah. Well, it'd be the problem too. It'd be hard to recreate.
I would no idea. Although, like I say, somebody did tell me what they thought had happened to it, and I can't remember now what that was.
Got to try to recreate it.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those accidents.
Yeah. Huh. Wow. Yeah, man. I always wanted to get into home brewing. I never had the patience for it. I always wanted to open the beer too early.
Well, yeah, you just have to be a cheapskate like me and not want to buy it all the time. And got some time on your hands, and I don't mind messing around in the kitchen. So,
So, John, I heard you were in a couple of bands too.
Yeah, I did a little of that as well for a while. But I was talking about the bar. That's what I was talking about. Getting involved with the pub. Because my brother, essentially the last kind of full-on NoMeansNo concert was in Frankfurt in Germany at this squatted house. When we went over, you got to understand, when we went over to Europe for the first time to tour and play, we were invited over by the Dutch government. Well, not the Dutch government. The Dutch government funded a sort of international music festival, spring festival that would go over 4 or 5 nights, and they would give money to all these different clubs and community centers to bring bands in from around the world. And we were on AT, and there was a record label in Holland called the Conquerel, and there was a hardcore Dutch band who one of the fellows was dating or going out or eventually married Ruth Schwartz from More Damn Records, who were AT's distributor. And And so they kind of knew all about AT bands and stuff, and they were like, well, we want to get NoMeansNo over to play. And then so they arranged for us to play like 4 shows in some clubs around Holland, which we all got paid pretty decently for because we're all government-funded shows. So it was sort of like paid most of our airfare. And then through them, and they were a very independent punk rock kind of organization, they booked as well. And then they had a fella in Germany who booked, Dolph Hermanstetter. And I can't remember, we probably played a show in France. We didn't go too far afield. And although we did go to Yugoslavia, which is interesting. We played in Ljubljana when it was still Yugoslavia, so crossing over the into the east, it was that was pretty exciting. But
still Iron Curtain days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we went over there, it was we never played, like, apart from those shows in Holland. Everywhere we played was a squat. And there were no legitimate clubs that we played in, and it was this whole kind of, by the mid '80s, there was quite a connected scene, punk rock scene of people sharing interest in the music and booking bands, and everyone wanted American bands or Canadian bands to come play, and they all worked together quite well. It was a real movement, community, whatever. We just happened, because of being on AT, we just sort of slid into this world, and we played good shows, and people were like, oh, we were making fans, and then subsequently we toured regularly for the next 25 years, and primarily all of our contacts were these squatted places, like very lefty political and community activist type people, and into the music for not just to party and pick up girls, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was a very healthy scene, and right kind of as everything was blossoming in the States as well, in a way. But so one of these squats was called the Owl, and it's in Frankfurt, just outside of Frankfurt. And they have a festival, and they had a festival every year. In fact, I think they're celebrating I got an email just recently, they're having their 40th anniversary or something. And so been around forever. And we played in Frankfurt a lot, but never played at the squat itself. We'd stay there all the time, but we never played there. And finally, in 2013, we were booked to play. And this is like, 1,500 to 2,000 people would come to their annual party. It was a big deal. It was it was a good show. A lot of bands played there. And so finally we did. Finally, we had the show at the L. And it turns out that was our last show that we played as Robbie, Tommy, and I cranking it out. That was June of 2013. So like literally, 10 years ago, almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
so,
did you have any idea at the time that would be, or?
No, there wasn't any. No, I didn't think at that moment that would be the last show. Although my brother Rob was less and less into the guitar music, and he'd been for several years. All he ever listened to was electronica and dubstep, and he was kind of looking for new horizons. And although he still wrote guitar music and whatnot, of course, and he's also 10 years older than me. 8 years older than me. So he turned 69 this year. And so 10 years ago, he's like my age now, 61. And he had only had a young family. He had started his family at 55. And so when we got back, we were kind of thinking we wanted to take a breather anyway. And that breather became a bit more of a longer hiatus. And then we went and did a Hanson Brothers tour in Canada early in 2014. And then that was it. Yeah. We never, the hiatus turned into retirement. Well, for my brother. Yeah.
Right.
Which was understandable and fine.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Thinking about that and getting into kind of the dubstep and electronic or the industrial type sound. It's but I mean, you guys have always been genre bending.
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, you didn't. Did you identify? Do you think as a punk band, or was it just like being adjacent to like DOA and some of those bands up there that you were just like, this is where the best spot we fit in, or?
Yeah, I'd say that's where we fit in. And I would say, yeah, we identified as punk rock, but we got started in Victoria, British Columbia, and like anything that wasn't punk rock was punk rock. It's like it was a very broad spectrum.
No, in that era, I think in general, I think it was just more of a people fell under a wider umbrella than they did.
Yeah, it was just doing not commercial stuff and more DIY and just like putting a band together and putting on shows, whereas you couldn't get through the gatekeepers at the local nightclubs or the record labels, right? So we were really born out of that, and Victoria was quite a stewing pot. Lots of musicians, lots of different bands, very vibrant in a way. And so, but I mean, my brother was getting into the Ramones before I was. I didn't graduate till 1980, and during my junior high and high school, I was still listening to a lot of pop rock, and I was played in the school band, and I was really into big band, and in the 70s.
I can hear that. Yeah, you've got that time. You're a good drummer, man.
Well, thank you. And all my drum set drumming in those teenage years was playing jazz band.
Yeah, so, that makes sense to me.
And my brother ended up moving back to Victoria in like 1978 or something, and he had bought a TIAC 4-track. So, which was pretty for home recording, was state of the art in that day.
Yeah, back then.
4 tracks, and you could overdubs. Like, oh my God, it was pretty cool stuff. And I of course was like, he was like, okay, he brought home Devo and the Ramones and the Sex Pistols, and I'm like, oh, this is I don't know if I like this, but I'm like, I don't know what, 16 years old, and
right,
and but recording. Like, oh my God, this is fucking great. Let's record. And Robbie wanted to play music. He only really kind of got started playing guitar and playing music around that time. So he was like already 4 years old or something. Yeah. And but he was all inspired. And so we just started recording together. And but then I went and saw DOA. In like 1979, they played at the University of Victoria, and Robbie's like, come on, we got to go see this band. Let's go. All right, sure. And I listened to their CD, The Prisoner 13, which was, it's a pretty seminal single now. I mean, that inspired so many bands, like that single alone. And it was like, oh, well, this is pretty cool. Yeah, oh, sure, let's go. And it was fucking mind-blowing. It was just, oh, my God. First of all, I'd never seen a drummer play that fast in my life.
Right.
And it was, this hardcore. And there was all these kind of people going to, this weird bunch of people going to see a punk rock band. But the local rugby team came just to be shit disturbers, right?
Right.
And challenge this punk rock band. It was so weird, it's like you get beat up because you listen to some kind of music that somebody else did.
Yeah.
Like I never understood that. You Hey, you listen to punk rock, so we're just gonna come in and kick the shit out of you. Like I don't. Right. It was beyond me. Like why?
Well, even here we had, people listening to the same music, but then politics got involved. We talked a lot about, skinheads crashing shows, racial skinheads crashing shows. Yeah. And it's just like, never could understand that either.
Well, people can just be like group assholes too.
Oh,
like,
yeah. It's
we
an
had a
excuse
friend
to get into a fight. I mean, the whole idea is to get into a fight. That's why it's got nothing to do with politics. It's got everything to do with being in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
one
Victoria
of the most
was
crazy
full of
things I've heard was one of our friends, John, remember Lisa Papineau telling us the story about the entire crowd turning to, it was like this little small town in the middle of nowhere. You know, their band was just trying to, you know, tour and get any kind of attention. And like everybody, like this huge group showed up for the show and they all turned their backs on the band.
Bought tickets, you know, just to show up and turn their back on the band. Yeah.
Well, I guess they had a point to make.
I guess so.
I guess, but it was, she was like, that was fucked up.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucked up. At least nobody got hurt, I guess. But geez.
Well, I suppose better than showing up and beating the shit out of the band.
So, are you guys the inspiration of Night of the Living Rednecks? Is that?
Yeah,
you told Jello that story, and he just went with it.
Okay. Well, the long and short of it is that show was really a turning point for me personally. It was like this was intense for one,
sure,
and just the energy in that room. Although it was at times pretty aggro, there was never actually a fight, but there was at one point. Chuck Business was waving his cymbal stand around at people, and this one big rugby dude was right in Joe Shithead's face. It was one of these shows where there's basically no stage. And Joe just wound up, got this big fucking hork going in his mouth and just spit right in the guy's face. Because they were all spitting on them, right? Punk rockers, they would spit on you.
Yeah.
And then it got pretty tense. Don't fight. The fight didn't break out, but a beer bottle came flying in and hit Randy Rampage in his base on his hand, and he got cut in his blood, and I'm like I'm 17-year-olds going like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, okay, this is like nothing I've seen before.
Right.
You know, I may be a little late in the game, but this is pretty insane.
Yeah.
And so, and then I was listening to nothing but all the punk rock at that time.
Yeah.
And you asked, do I identify as a punk rocker, or do we identify as punk rock? Says, well, that's what we were listening to. That's what was inspiring us to play. We didn't really end up playing music like that. Robbie and I then were writing. I don't know if you're familiar with our first album, Mama.
With Mama, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that was guitar free too.
Yeah, it was. There's a little bit of guitar and piano on it, but basically it's bass and drums, and mainly because, we got more inspired. Like, okay, well, we don't know any guitar players to play with, but. So let's just write music that we can play. And Robbie was like, he hadn't played the bass before. He just played guitar. So he bought a bass, started to learn how to play it, and started writing riffs and stuff and lyrics to go on them. And I would drum. And when you're just bass and drums, then you kind of do more. You got more space to fill. And the songs were pretty straightforward. They weren't like verse, chorus kind of stuff. Mainly because that just didn't work without the guitar players and the leads and all that sort of stuff. So it was kind of by happenstance, really, that because it was just my brother and I doing our own little thing in my folks' basement on a 4-track, and that we just ended up sounding different because of happenstance.
Yeah, and filling those spots,
and it was, and we were enjoying it, and the whole thing was just putting that energy. And I think why, like, the punk rockers ended up liking this stuff, even though it was all weird, is that we would play it really, really loud. So a lot of that intensity, a lot of that energy, and that's like, I'm not into the violence, but I'm into the energy. intensity, and that's what punk rock. That's what drew me in, and what the band embraced as part of that. What came out of the '70s and all that punk rock music. What intensity that.
Punk's a spirit more than it is anything else.
Yeah. It's what you put into it, and the audience would put in as well. I mean, you go to some lame ass fucking rock show, and everyone just sitting around, but the audience was half the show. Like,
absolutely. I just went to see Black Flag a couple weeks ago, and I got to say, I was impressed with the crowds and the younger kids treating each other well, but still moshing their ass off, Yeah. And, nobody was getting hurt or anything, but they were, it was intense. It was probably the most intense pit that I've seen in a while at a show. Just because, we're all getting old and, of course I'm upstairs, in the balcony nodding.
Yes, of course. I'm one of those lame-ass rock and roll audience guys.
You know what, though? We paid our dues. I think we all paid our dues. I think we can sit down. I love it when I go to a show now and the audience decides, it's okay to sit.
Right.
Oh, thank God. And everybody's got that collective sigh of relief, okay, we get to sit down.
I paid my dues. I can sit down.
Right. Yep. Did my time.
Well, I know it's good to hear. I mean, but it was always kind of that teenage boy adrenaline, that fueled these shows mostly, but it was the same thing, that energy, but nobody getting hurt. Like the idea was to have that energy, but it wasn't really. I mean, maybe some of the skinhead punk rocks, maybe there was a scene. I think the eastern states had more of a reputation of being more vicious, a bit more vicious than the west side and the Midwest, I guess. And but generally speaking, it was like no one was there to get hurt. They were just there to have fun, and the audience provided half the energy of the show or more. I've seen some bands that were like, not that exciting, but the audience was going crazy, and it was like that made the show. Mm-hmm. So we are all caught up in that. Like, when I'm on stage playing my drums, I want to have all of that energy.
Yeah, that's one thing I always appreciate about seeing the footage, from back in the day of you guys, and they, put you up front.
That was two reasons for that, really. One being, as traditional jazz setup, that the drums are off to the side, but up front. Often, Buddy Rich and the Gene Krupa and the bands where the drummer was the star, they were right up front. I mean, they're front stage. And the other thing being, going back to my brother and I, we played a couple of shows. And I set up in the middle at the back. He stood out in front with his bass, and be like, "Well, this is completely stupid. I got my back to you." So it's like, well, this is dumb. Like, okay, let's just set side by side so we could, he's looking at me, I'm looking at him, and it's two musicians on stage.
Right.
So when we brought the guitar player in, Andy, eventually, who ended up playing with us. We just didn't bother changing.
That makes sense. I mean, I don't know how many shows I've sat through where I see just the singer and, and he's trying to keep time and stuff with the drummer or the front man, whatever they're doing. And he's got his back to the crowd because he just has to look at the drummer and, connect.
Yeah, it's awkward in some ways. I mean, as a show, I think they put the drummer in the back because of television. Somebody was telling me that's why the drummer ended up in the center at the back, and it was more. It didn't have to do with what made it easier to play. It had to do with how it looked and how it was set up.
That even always seems weird to me because if there's anybody that's lowest, right, it's the drummer, right? They're sitting down while everybody else is standing up. Right, it seems like it would be, so we have to build these risers for drummers to even get seen. Yeah. It doesn't really make sense. You're right.
Like I say, it didn't work for us, so we just didn't bother. And also I sing, and when I'm singing, I'm a right-handed drummer, so my mic is to the left of me by the hi-hats, and I have to turn to sing into the mic. So when I'm singing lead, which wasn't a lot of songs, but it was some, I'm singing to the side of the stage.
Yeah.
You know, not singing out to the audience, visually not singing out to the audience,
right.
Or physically. So that was the other reason, like I'm singing, so I want to be able to look out the audience while I'm singing, and they can see me singing. Like there's some drummers that are lead singers, and it's always like, well, who's singing?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the drummer.
The drummer, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's a hard thing to do.
Oh my God, I've tried so many times. I can't play an instrument and sing at the same time to save my life. I've been trying. Forever. I mean, maybe if I'm playing guitar and just like a 3/4 song or something, but
yeah,
nothing.
Well, it amazed me because my brother could play and he would sing, but he could also sort of talk, and that's a talent. Like, do you think singing and playing at the same time is hard? Try talking and playing at the same. It's incredible.
You don't have the cadence.
You're not lining everything up in your head with the rhythm and the melody, and everything is one thing, right? It's like as soon as you begin talking, it becomes disconnected from everything else. Oh my God! But he managed to kind of do it. He could sort of do it. It was always kind of amazing.
Yeah, that's always impressive to me. Well, just sign to that somebody's played a song like a few thousand times.
Yeah. Well, it does get easier.
It's I always assume it's a lot of muscle memory.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yep. Yeah. So that's kind of how that all came about. But what it did is it made us a little bit weirder and a little bit more unique, and frustrated the hell out of lazy house techs who are like, where do you want those fucking, oh geez.
Oh no.
But we learned very early on, right from the very beginning, bring your own sound man. It's more important than a roadie or a manager or a merchant, your sound man.
Because they're rare.
Yeah, he's the only one guaranteed to be on your side out there in the audience. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, we that's something we did right from the very get-go.
So what made you so with the new project with Dead Bob, like I said, I can't sing my praises enough of this record. It's just great.
Yeah, it's great.
But what stirred it back up in you to get back out there and do this one on your own? Well, I mean, not entirely on your own, but
Yeah, pretty much on my own. Yeah,
pretty much on your own.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I had no intention of resurrecting a musical career. Once Robbie retired, and I ended up moving up here. I moved out of the Lower Mainland and came up here, and I got involved with a robot band, the band Compressor Head.
Compressor Head, yeah,
and that was an amazing project. And that was kind of where I was going musically. I was still very much involved in writing music and working on this project. And I moved up here, and I was like the first time I basically lived by myself anywhere, and got into just writing lots of music. I was writing music for the robots, but also just writing music in general. And it was a very, very creative time. And then eventually I got involved with some other things around here. I got involved with a coffee shop, helped build one, and then ended up building myself a job for a little while. And all the while I was working with the robots. It was a kind of a long term. It took like 4 years from when I started to when the record was done.
Oh, wow.
Just the things that they had to do, building robots and expanding. Well, they started out with just a guitar robot drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put out this video of these two robots playing Ace of Spades by Motorhead.
By Motorhead, yeah.
And it was one of those things, went totally viral. They just filmed it on their iPhone, and the thing went viral. And then Lemmy saw it, and he posted it, reposted it. And they had
that'll do it, yeah.
Yeah, they had like 1.5 million hits or something. And so they had a friend living in Australia and whose wife was like second in command with the Big Day Out festivals down there. So the promoters who did those, they said, well, if they had a bass player, they come and play the Big Days Out, and literally gave the guy like $50,000 to go build a bass player. Wow. Which he did.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he came. He was a Dutchman living in, I think he was a Dutchman living in Australia. Came back to Berlin, was friends with all these. They all knew each other from before, and built this bass player and built it better. They were getting better at what they were doing. And then they decided, well, we need to be a band. We need to have a singer. They went and did these Big Day Out things, and it was like, okay, well, we can take this to the next step. Let's get original music and get a singer built, and that's when they contacted me, and because they're big Hanson Brothers fans, actually. I mean, they were NoMeansNo fans, but really the Hanson Brothers was why they reached out, and that's kind of what they wanted. They want that Ramonesy Hanson Brothers punk rock. Right. And they just got a hold of me out of the blue. They tracked me down, and I'm like, robots, hey, okay. And they said, okay, we'll fly you to Berlin, and you come and see them. And like, oh, all right. And, when they sent me an airplane ticket, I was like, okay, these guys are real.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I went over, and it was like, holy fuck, this is just so crazy. And they're all super nice guys, and we just embarked on it. Said, okay, I'll start writing music, and we'll figure this all out. And it was a process, and we soon realized that the original guitar player wasn't as versatile as it needed to be. So it's like, I'm going to build another one. This is why it took so many years. It's like,
I see. Yeah.
It took like a year to build the next guitar player. In making improvements, learning as they're going, and then having to learn how to, because everything the robots do is programmed. There's no, of course, not intuitive at all, but they have to sound like they're intuitive,
right?
So to make it rock, right? And so it was quite a process, of trying to, they're programming these robots to play, and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound very good because it's not really being played like a guitar player would play. The drummer wouldn't do that. The drummer needs to be able to do this. And so I'm sitting there trying to guide it from that perspective. And they're trying to figure out how to make the programming work, how to make they're all pneumatic. Everything about them is pneumatic. And, so it was, I could go on and on about the details, but it was pretty amazing. Stuff. The growth, what they had to learn, what I had to learn about music, deconstructing it, right down to exactly, what are the nuances, and then how do you get the robots to do these nuances, and so it was amazing, and that I'm really proud of the record. I love it. And then, of course, after it was all said and done, then the humans started fighting amongst themselves.
Of course. That's exactly why, I bet you John's going the same place.
Oh, yeah. We had Captured by Robots, J-Bot. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I'm not familiar with him personally, but I'm familiar with the band,
Yeah, he's basically done something similar, except he's doing it all himself.
Right.
One person, and he said, and that's the main reason, is because just all the, he's tried to have other techs and stuff help him with it, but he's like the infighting and shit like that. He's like, I'd just rather handle it myself.
Yeah, he decided he'd rather build his own band than try to
build anybody because he's that difficult. That's what he's. But yeah, he was talking about similar things. It's just, and who else were we talking to in Ireland who talked about just playing everything is slightly out of tune. If it's, it's like if it's too tuned in, it's too rigid, it just doesn't sound human,
Was that Brandon?
I think it might have been, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the thing is also they designed the robots to play the instruments rather than manipulating the instruments to be more playable by robotic, engineers, with robotic engineers. Like, it's a guitar, and there's nothing changed to this guitar. It's how he doesn't have hands. He's got sliders with plungers. He's got like 72 fingers. You know what I mean? Right. And they're all individually operated. But the idea being is like, no, it's robots that just think they're humans playing punk rock. And so the drum set is set up just like a drum set, and the bass had a little bit cut off. The P bass they had to cut slightly a bit off the top of it so the slider would slide perfectly. But other than that, he's fingering and playing the bass, and same as the other guitar eventually. And then the singer, the one thing we decided early on is like, well, we have to cheat with the vocals because robotic vocals just it's
not
just,
there.
Then it would sound completely cheeseball, right? And it wouldn't have that authentic sound of punk rock and singing. So we opted in the end, like, okay, we'll do the voices will be human, and I was the lead singer, and Tommy Holliston from NoMeansNo, he sang a bit part with the little robot that operated the hi-hat. The drummer had a helper to work the hi-hat.
All right.
It was great. It was just great. And then another friend of ours, a friend of the Compressor, has a fella from Switzerland who is a singer in a punk rock band. He came and did Helga, the guitarist. So the voices were overdubbed and natural, and then of course they were canned. But the idea, like the singer, his head had a built-in speaker and a mouth, so that it's canned, but he had to hold a mic on stage live. It was still going through the PA through a microphone, but it was just being broadcast out of his head.
Yeah,
nice.
Same as a guitar player.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they were pretty, there were a lot of detail, and in the end it was fantastic. And then it kind of fell off to the wayside. And then,
they're touring Chuck E. Cheese these days.
Yes, I've been in touch again. He's trying to get it all going again. So
awesome.
I may be back working with the robots at some point. I'm not sure.
Let us know if you do. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would love to get involved again. But but the thing about the pub was I'd also, for years, brewing beer. I always imagine or fantasize what it'd be like to have like a brew on premise, a brew pub, and we have music and all that sort of stuff. It'd be fun. And I thought, well, at this point in my life, and it seems like the band is pretty much done. And so I got together with some partners, and we ended up buying this kind of dive bar in Powell River with the intention of renovating, making it into a craft beer pub, which we did, like 15 taps of craft beer and lots of local breweries around here. It's fantastic. But we never ended up getting the brewery, and then we ran out of money, and then COVID, and then we kind of got through all that. But last year was there was no real COVID bounce back at all. And then, of course, fucking Putin had to decide to go fucking invade Ukraine.
Right.
And so then it was all the inflation and shit, all the stuff that's gone on now in the last year. So finally we had to close the doors January 1st. We still there. We still own it. We haven't been able to open it up again because we just ran out of money. So we've been trying to sell it or find investment or blah, blah, blah. So that was quite an experience. It didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. I wanted to be a professional brewer. But in the meantime, like so many people in COVID, I had some time. Like the bar, we were shut down, takeout only kind of stuff, and blah, blah, blah. And there was lots of government support here. It's like, can't complain there. Kept the doors open, kept the bills paid, and we kept going, never closed. But I had time, and I had built a workshop on my property, and then kind of realized, hey, I can set my drums up here. I haven't had my drum set where I live for, I don't know, since like the early 90s. I actually, since about 85. It's always
wow.
my drums are always in like a practice place, right, where we practice. And ever since it wasn't my parents' basement anymore, that was it. My drums were not where I lived. And so of course I had all this music. I had all these demos and some old NoMeansNo stuff and just a lot of music. And I thought, oh, fuck, I'm just going to, I got my hands on a mixer, and it's like, I've been working with GarageBand only. And I did have to get Logic Pro in order to ship MIDI files out to Germany when I was doing the robots. So I got that. But I realized, hey, I can kind of just set up a mixer and set up a stereo pattern of mics around my drum set and just record them stereo, not multi-tracking. And I'm going to start putting some real drums to all this stuff. It was a lot of program drumming and a lot of loops that I built songs around. And in fact, just to digress, the one song on the album called One of You, which I think it's track 8, starts out with a snare drum.
Yeah.
That's the loop that I built that whole song on. That is just an Apple loop. Yeah. And I left it in because it's like, well, the whole song was built on this loop. And of course I went and added my own drums and put the whole second drum part in and all that. It's all live drumming. But that's the kind of thing I was doing. I was writing songs and just on loops and programming my drums. And so I went to replace them. Like, I'm just going to learn to play these songs, and literally the headphones on and playing along with the demos that I'd made, and the computer on the grid. And I just started liking the results I was getting. It's like, hey, drums actually sound pretty good. And these songs start coming alive when it's real instruments being played. And so I just started to build out these songs. And realized that a couple of years ago, I guess I got started in COVID, 2020? Yeah, 2020. And I was sort of well in 2021. It was still all that sort of stuff. And I realized, hey, I could release something. I can make this into something and just put it out for fun, like on Bandcamp. Not, again, thinking I'm resurrecting a musical career, but so that's basically how it all came around. And I realized there was some guitar. I'm a very rudimentary guitar player, shall we say. So I had Byron Slack from the Invasives come in, and we co-wrote a song for the Compressor Head. And that in the opening track, Just Breathe, was actually originally a song he'd written that I then took and totally changed and rearranged it. And so I was, working with him already. And then he came up and played some guitar for me when I wanted to be played better. And then Selena Martin was again, I discovered the original demo for Lifelike, which ended up Robbie writing lyrics for it, went on Dance to the Headless Bourgeoisie, and which I thought we did a great version, but it was, a bonus track on the double vinyl. It kind of was immediately relegated to obscurity. And we did play it once. So we brought a keyboard along when we had 2 drummers, the last tours we did with Ken Kempster. But it just, it was one of my favorites that Robbie had written for music that I had written. But like I say, it just kind of got lost. And when I heard the original demo, it's like, well, this needs to be more of a broader arrangement. It's more keyboard driven. It's more of a pop song. And I just it was just out of my own, like, I just want to do this again a different way, sort of. Yeah. And so I wanted a more choral. I didn't want it to be just men singing. This should be like a duet. It was sort of sung as a duet with Robbie and me, I guess, or Robbie doubling himself. And so Selena is just this artist that I had met, and she's awesome, and she's a great singer. She's so I just literally, she lives in France and she's from Canada, but said, hey, you think you'd like to sing this song? And she's like, yeah, sure. And I sent her the files, the parts, me singing. And so I was just building these songs out kind of just for my own, whatever, for my own pleasure. And I had my son played an acoustic guitar on one song, and
oh, cool.
Yeah, so it was really kind of a fun project. And Ford Pierre is another very talented artist, and I've known him forever. Played lots of stuff with him in a band called the Show Business Giants, which was Tom Holliston's kind of project. I've been playing with these guys for fucking years. And all fun stuff, and he, I'm not much of a lyricist, and Ford writes lots of words, so I say, hey, he was writing some words for me, and one of the songs, That Was Too Easy, was a song he'd just written some words for me. Mm-hmm. So I had some help to get it done, and then with the bar kind of collapsing around me, I'm like, well, maybe getting the band back together is... Yeah, I don't have a choice now.
Right? Well, I mean, you've got so many people, though, that are in, kind of our age range, around 50 or so, or becoming, kind of the, a little bit of the older guard, but still touring around stuff. You don't get any invites from them, or you plan on touring it, or...
Well, like I say, it was never really in the plans, but as it kind of came to life, it was taking on a life of its own, and now, like I say, literally, like I'm unemployed. Yeah. So, obviously, I'm not playing with my brother or Tom, but these people that I just talked to you about, also Byron's partner, Christy the Adept, plays in a band called Wrong, R-O-N-G. And she's like a real spitfire. She's multi-instrumentalist. She plays trumpet. Well, that was can she come and play for me? Because I got some more arrangements, and she plays guitar and keyboards and sings. And so, yeah, a real talent. And Byron, of course, and Ford. And then my partner here that I got involved with originally years ago, building a coffee shop with, and then he was a partner in the pub. He's a bass player, a really good bass player. Played in a band called Pigment Vehicle, which was from Victoria, crazy, fucking, really weird band. Challenging music, but played to the punk rockers. Would go on tour with, a lot of the punk rock bands, and he's been out of music for a long time, but wants to get back into it, and we're good friends up here. So I was like, well, maybe I can get a band together, and so subsequently, they're all want to, and as long as we can make all our schedules happen, then the plan is to try to make a live show out of this and go out as Dead Bob and play.
Oh, that'd be great. And you guys have played with Pac AD up there before, haven't you?
Yeah. I just played a number of shows with NoMeansNo. They came in on part of a tour in Europe with us, and
oh, cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We've had Maya on the show before.
She was great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, they're really, really fun band to listen to watch and play with, and good people.
Yeah. Becky couldn't make it on the show that night, but Maya was a good show, and man,
it was fun. Yeah.
Just incredible.
Yeah, I think they've been a little off and on in the last couple of years. But I just saw, they just popped on Facebook. I see they got a bunch of shows coming up this year. So I guess they're still at it. Yep.
Yeah. Well, there you go, man. Super group right there.
Super group.
We'd come see you for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, if we, like I say, not sure if we'll have anything together to play except perhaps locally up here in British Columbia, maybe a little bit in the western states. Seattle will go down a bit in the fall. I have to get the whole Bandcamp thing kind of went a little sideways on me, and it was too much. I don't have a label, and so I'm kind of searching around what would be a good label at this point to get some hard copy released and some support. And it's like,
we've got friends.
I need a booking agent. I need a fucking publicist. I need all these things. Like, okay, to get this engine rolling again, it's going to take some time to sort of put together it all. I just kind of did it, put it out there. Had great, awesome response. It's been really fun. From that perspective, people are enjoying it and excited about it, and that, it's always, any musician, of course, it makes you feel good. So, now I find, okay, well, I'm just going to see if I can't get this thing rolling.
Yeah, we're getting a merch line together, or it's a good place to buy it?
Another wonderful, you just meet people, and it's a company called Bifocal Media. They're down in the States. They put out they put out T-shirts, and they do, like, the thing is like kind of doing one-offs, limited runs. Artists do something, and they split the money with the artist and the band, and it's so kind of doing something a little different with T-shirts, and they ended up. It was through a fellow named Abe Brennan from Denver. What was his band? Oh, here I go. There goes my brain. We played with them a bunch. He was in with the All and all that crowd, and Bill Stevenson, and he had a really good band too. It was kind of that style. Crap! Sorry, Abe. I forgot. It's been a little while. I'm getting old.
We'll plug it in. Insert band name here.
Yeah, you can look it up right when you edit the show. Anywho, he is an artist as well, and it was a couple of years ago. It's like, hey, I kind of want to do this wrong shirt. He drew it, he drew the picture of the cow and all that. It was like, what do you think? We're doing this thing with this T-shirt company, and I'm like, oh, sure, what the hell, go ahead. And then they sent us money, so I was like, yay! Someone's paying us. Awesome. And they've gone on to do a bunch of different stuff, and super nice guys. And I've never, the head fellow, Charles, I think he's in North Carolina. Charles, his last name escapes me again. And so he just did a Dead Bob T-shirt. He said, okay, let's do a Dead Bob T-shirt. He sent me something based on the cover just like a few days ago. Oh, cool. Awesome. Let's do it. And this other dude, Wes Greaves is his name, artist. He just popped up on Messenger. Oh, I heard you got a new album and all blah, blah, blah. And I'm this artist. This is what I do. And I looked at it. It's like, fuck, this is great. This is, I do album covers, and I'd love NoMeansNo, and I want to do something. It's like, awesome. Well, I think we've got a great, we got the triad right here, because this Bifocal Media does these one-offs with an artist doing something with the band, and like, so that's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.
And so, so starting to get some ideas for some merch and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Where did the name come from with Dead Bob? Doesn't have anything to do with Robbie, does it?
No, Dead Bob is a NoMeansNo song. It's off of Sex Mad, the album we released in '86.
Oh,
on AT. I think it was the first album we released with AT. And we have a character. Before that, we had an EP called You Kill Me.
Oh, You Kill Me guy.
Yeah, You Kill Me guy. Mm-hmm. That's Dead Bob.
That's Dead Bob? Oh, okay. Okay.
That we called him Dead Bob. And then and had a song that went with him. which we haven't played since, probably 1987, which I plan on resurrecting.
Right on.
But, because some people will, obviously, if I get out there and play, if I can get the band together and go play, people are going to want to hear some NoMeansNo stuff as well. And
sure.
And I can't be NoMeansNo 2.0.
Right.
And especially some of my brother's songs, which are, that's him singing about himself. I'd be covering myself. It'd be kind of stupid. So, but there are certain songs that would be really cool, especially to rearrange and try to do, put some new life into them. But I thought, well, fuck, if I'm going to call myself Dead Bob, we should play this song.
Right.
So, and Dead Bob was kind of what I originally wanted to call myself was Nope. N-O-P.
Yeah.
But then it was like, oh, fuck, it turned out to be this major Hollywood release in the movie. And like, oh, well. And that's when I went on to like Spotify and started looking at names like Nope. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Fuck, there's like 8 of them out there. It's like, oh.
Right.
All right, I'll call myself Mr. Wright. R-I-G-H-T, because it was a character when Robbie and I put out that album, Mr. Wrong.
Mr. Wrong, Mr. Right. Yeah.
And apparently there's a half a dozen or 12 of those out there. It's like suddenly I found myself like I can't come up with a name that's not out there, like, and not just one man, like 6, 8. It's like, oh my God, and it got super frustrating. Like, you're no longer picking a name for yourself because it's fun.
Right.
I want to be that.
Right.
You're like, well, what can I call myself that's not already fucking taken?
You know what? We run into the same problem, but the other way, as far as we know, we were the first undetermined podcast, and now there's like 3 or 4 of them out there.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, sue their fucking asses.
Yeah, right? We're friends with one. One of them clearly has a bigger budget than we do.
Oh, yeah.
Much bigger.
So that we would probably end up paying them money.
Probably. Just from legal fees alone. Yep. Die on that hill.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we do. But yeah, it's funny. We talk to a lot of other bands who just younger bands who just don't give a shit about that anymore, whether it's taken. They're just like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know.
They're just like, whatever. It's too, it's the line of bands that are out there is too extensive. They're all over the world now, and it's all connected to the internet. They're like, just be better than the band you're naming yourself.
Yeah, be the best. Be the best one of the best.
Yeah, be the best undetermined you can. Be the best Nope you can.
Yeah, exactly. I know, but I found it very frustrating.
Yeah.
It was I guess because there was a lot of stress in my life with the pub and all that. It just kind of caught me off guard, like, fuck, why would this be the most difficult thing?
Right.
But my friend of mine who's moved up here, actually our original sound man, not the original, but the sound man that was with us the longest. He was our sound man for about 19 years. And he's subsequently moved up here and he's been following along with this project, and he said, well, just call yourself Dead Bob. Yeah. And like, oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Great name.
Yeah. It's like, all right. Yeah, I think I could live with that. And then I've grown to appreciate it. I think it's a pretty good name.
Right.
Yeah. It'll do.
It'll do.
It's
so you don't have a set day for hitting the road or anything? Or just
kind of working on all the...
I mean, shit, the album just dropped April 20th, 21st, something like that?
Yeah, April. The Queen's birthday, so...
A day after Weed's birthday.
Yeah, exactly. I was born in and around then, too. Tom Holliston's birthday, actually. Our guitar player, Tom Holliston, his birthday was first. I was going to release it on February 23rd, which is my birthday. But I did not have a name.
That sucks. I had to wait that long.
I said, it's kind of a lot of things to get together. And, booking now, it's like, talk about millions of bands out there. Well, millions of bands out there, and you have to book really far in advance. And I like to say, I've got to get all the mechanisms up and running again, because it takes a lot of support from people to make it all happen. So, but thankfully, I've got lots of friends out there, and people are excited to help. And
cool. Well, you got a friend in us. We're going to do our best to pimp you out and see what we can get going. Send you to people and.
Of course, the whole world of podcasts and stuff, as I was telling you before the tape was running. Mm-hmm. Live at the end of the road. We literally had no cell phones or internet up until
crazy
ago. We still don't have internet. I'm talking to you on my data on my cell phone.
Wow.
Crap! Well, I hope we're not.
The podcasts out there. It's like I've not really delved into it, but there's. So I'm hoping, be doing a lot of chatting with like-minded folks like yourselves. So
sure, and you'll love Conan.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he's fun.
Great guy.
Yeah. Again, I knew nothing about him until he sent me a message. Like, hey, you want to come on? Sure.
Yeah, that was probably my fault. I was bragging a little bit to him. Like, I got John Wright, come on. Because he just had like Dave Lombardo, and he's got, he's got.
Right, he kills us in some of his guests that he has.
So many ways. We're kind of his little puppy, adopted puppy podcast that he likes.
He tosses us scraps every now and then.
Right. Yep.
So if we beat him to something, that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, Dale Crover's his drummer. It's He's doing okay in the popularity category, but we could all use more money. We could all use more, sales for sure.
Oh man, he would love to have you for Caterwall too.
I'm
sure of it. I'll bet you get asked.
Sure.
Yeah, he was talking about that today. So, and that's why we're not going to talk until I think next month. He's busy.
Yeah, that dude's a hard worker. For somebody in, I was calling him the hardest working guy since James Brown died. Yeah. But all right, man. Well, is there anything else you want to plug or we don't want to keep you on all night or anything, but.
No, not really. It was, like I say, just super appreciate you guys reaching out and asking
anytime
about the record, and like I say, I've been really pretty humbled by a lot of the responses and the excitement, and people really missed NoMeansNo. The fans are still there, and but it's kind of pressure too. You feel like, oh well, I'm not my brother, and I'm not NoMeansNo, and I hope you.
Yeah, but there's no NoMeansNo without you. At the same time, so don't dismiss yourself from it.
Well, people will start maybe they hear this record, and then the next record will be like, oh, okay, maybe they'll start seeing when you see it separated away, like, oh, that's why those songs sounded like that.
Yeah, but man, don't sell yourself short. I've heard so many people. And also, like I say, we were so isolated here in Missouri and you isolated up there in Canada. I'm surprised that it found my ears, but if it wasn't for the talent, if it wasn't for the songs, if it wasn't for a lot of other names saying, oh, check out this band, probably would have never heard you.
Yeah.
But, yep. You certainly got the fans out there, man. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah. We were definitely fan driven, not industry driven.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of on purpose too. The industry, it's just like, I don't know, we get swallowed up if we get into that. We're not a band that can be just marketed straight up.
Well,
and we just thought, well, let's just be the big fish in the little pond. It'll probably be better for us. And
well, punk doesn't work if it's industry driven. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
And everything with Nirvana, grunge and the sort of when punk really sort of got into another level of success, financial and commercial success. It all kind of changed, but we had already established who we were, and our audience was there. So, you know, the fan support, absolutely. I mean, every band is supported by their. Can't really succeed without it, but with us, it was really a very direct connection between the two. We didn't have the publicity machine behind us and all that kind of stuff, and the major label support and that. So it was pretty DIY in that respect.
Yeah. Well, and you got to keep the networking going too. So one thing we're figuring out too in this is, you know, more connections we make with other people and like-minded people, more people we reach. So,
well, yeah. And I'm discovering that now. You know, playing 30 years, there's a lot of people out there I met, and a lot of people that are happy to see me doing this and want to help if they can. So,
well, we're certainly a couple of those fuckers, that's for sure.
Yeah. We'll listen and tell people, and we'll buy stuff when we can afford it. You know?
Absolutely. We'll get it out there and share it. But, yeah, man, John Wright, thank you so much for coming on, man. We had a great time. It was really cool to meet you. And, Dad Bob, Dad Camp.
Dad Bob.
Back of the woods. Even, you know, the thing is, the last time we were through, it was just visiting my sister. So,
hey, man, I'll buy you a beer. You just let me know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Sure.
Right on.
Okay, good night, fellas.
All right. Well, don't disconnect yet, but
I will not.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to Undetermined the Podcast. Special guest, John Wright, Dead Bob. NoMeansNo. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, I'm going to hit stop.